you're going to be working with international organizations. Do you think one race is superior than another race on the planet Earth?
Senator, absolutely not.
You don't. So do you think that America would be weaker if it was, say, 40% Jewish?
Anybody else?
I've heard you say that you regret some of your comments about Jews.
Absolutely.
Do you regret any other comments about any other races? So this is the problem. You make the most incendiary comments that you admit that you regret about Jews, about Latinos, about blacks. And you sit here and say that you do not have a worldview, that somehow our country is weakened based upon the populations of each. In fact, you say in your writings that it is a threat to the United States of America and create an us versus them. And the only interpretation I can have of us versus them is it's white people against others.
If you're tired of watching Senate hearings turn into full-blown political warfare, hit that like button, subscribe to The Red Verdict, and let's break down this explosive clash that has everyone talking.
Mr. Carl, I never thought I would have somebody that made a lot of the statements that you've made before the United States Senate, and I would love to discuss some of your comments. You're going to be working with international organizations. Do you think one race is superior than another race on the planet Earth?
Senator, absolutely not.
You don't. So do you think that America would be weaker if it was, say, 40% Jewish?
Senator, absolutely not in and of itself. I think the problem...
Well, why did you qualify that?
No,
What do you
Senator,
mean
if
in
you'd
and
let
of
me
itself?
finish, I believe that unity, as President Trump has said, rather than diversity, is a greater strength.
But why not simply say it doesn't matter what percentage of our population is Jewish?
Senator, it certainly doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
Senator, if I could finish, as somebody of Jewish origin myself, and I do want to take this moment to say, because there have been some comments made, one of my weaknesses, and we've discussed some that you may think in general are weaknesses, is sometimes I take an idea too far. And I made some comments in interviews about minimizing the effect of the Holocaust that were absolutely wrong. And I'm not going to sit here and defend them here. I just want to be very, very clear on that point. Again, had I been in Germany in that time, even though I'm a sixth-generation American, but had I not, I would have been killed just like anybody else.
I've heard you say that you regret some of your comments about Jews.
Absolutely.
Do you regret any other comments about any other races?
Senator, you would have to reference a certain comment, but I'm certainly not a perfect person, and I'm sure that I've
Do you regret any of your comments about Latino Americans?
Senator, I'm sure that if you read me every single comment I'd made about a group, there would be some that, upon consideration...
So you stipulate for this body that you have in your past made comments about Jews and Latinos and perhaps blacks that you perhaps regret?
Senator, thank you for the question. As a Calvinist who believes that we're all infinitely sinful and only redeemed through grace...
See, sir, we're sending you into a very diverse world.
Yeah.
And you can't say unequivocally that America, it doesn't matter what our racial makeup is. You believe it matters what the racial makeup of America is.
Senator...
Do you believe it matters, yes or no, what the racial makeup of America is?
Senator, to echo President Trump, I believe
I don't want you to
unity
echo
rather than diversity...
President Trump. I want you to answer my question, yes or no. Does it matter what the racial makeup of America is?
Senator, I'll stand on my comment. Thank you.
What's your comment? Answer the question, yes or no.
Echoing President Trump, I believe unity rather than diversity is a strength.
So you have a problem if America grew to be more Latinos than white people?
Senator, the individual group is not important. This is a cross-societal...
What do you mean when you say that you believe in the Great Replacement theory?
Senator, thank you for that question. This refers to the intentional demographic replacement of Europeans in Europe. It was invented by Renaud Camus, who was a French scholar.
You think there's an active effort to, quote unquote, replace Americans right now?
Senator, I think the Democratic Party, through its immigration policies, has certainly shown signs of that.
And I don't understand that. So you are saying that if more Americans are Black or Latino Americans, that somehow weakens America because it puts whites in a minority.
Senator, I never said anything like that, nor do I actually believe that. I want to be very clear that regardless of country, if people generally share more in common, that's a strength.
Can I read you what you've said? Because it sounds like this. You said the Great Replacement is real, and they are going to try to make you pay for it. Who is they?
Senator, thank you for that question. I simply don't know from you reading that one isolated comment.
So this is the problem. You make the most incendiary comments that you admit that you regret about Jews, about Latinos, about Blacks. And you sit here and say that you do not have a worldview, that somehow our country is weakened based upon the populations of each. In fact, you say in your writings that it is a threat to the United States of America and create an us versus them. And the only interpretation I can have of us versus them is it's white people against others, which sounds deeply racist to me. That somehow you think our country's greatness depends upon its ethnic diversity as long as white people have more numbers than others. That does not sound like a nation that was founded with the belief that all people are created equal and equal before the eyes of God. It sounds like you have a racial hierarchy. There's no way for me to read this in any other way.
Senator,
because you have said our country, based upon religious diversity, based upon ethnic diversity, based upon racial diversity, you have indicated that somehow those make America weaker or stronger, that God forbid our nation grows in population, that then you suddenly say, I'm aggrieved, and they are trying to replace us. This is the United States of America. We are one nation under God, but you cut us up and divide us along racial lines.
Senator, respectfully, I do not think that they do.
You cannot use the word respectfully, because you do not respect me.
Oh,
you
no,
look
actually,
upon
I do.
me as my color of my skin. You say holidays like Juneteenth are racial hustles. Don't come here and hustle me.
Senator,
you have said statements that other nations are going to look upon you and read plainly. When you go to a country of a different religion or ethnicity, you have discriminated against Jews in your writing, you have discriminated against others, and then you claim yourself as a victim. Mr. Chairman, I've never seen such a blatantly racist individual who doesn't even deny that he's made these statements, but wants to tell us that he regrets them, and yet still believes that this body, who is committed to principles of equality, who is committed to ideals of our founders, that you're not in direct violation to the ideals and values and principles. And the last thing I want to say, I watched people beat others when they attacked the Capitol, viciously attack police officers. Brian Sicknick, a New Jersey resident, was beaten near death and would die days later. And you say those violent felons, you literally have said that they were treated worse than people during Jim Crow. When thousands of Americans were lynched, murdered, beaten, and killed, you equate Capitol Hill rioters with receiving worse treatment than Americans during Jim Crow, which even some of the worst people who participated in that violence and beatings have come forward decades later and said, I was wrong. It is shameful that when this body ran for its life, when they had gallows for the vice president put outside, when they tried to stop the peaceful transfer of power, that you would equate those people to the folks that were victimized and terrorized by white nationalist organizations like the KKK. Sir, you have no decency. You have no honor. You say inflammatory things because it thinks it will ingratiate you to those who are paying your salary. And you sit here before me and try to wrap yourself in the American flag? Well, I believe in this nation. I believe in the principles. I believe in those who fought and died for our country. You disgrace that legacy and the ideals that we all swear an oath to uphold, that does not believe in one nation for one people and another people. Dear God, I pray for us if we let somebody like you represent us to the diverse nations of the world as representing the values of our country.
Senator,
Mr.
I
Chairman,
absolutely
yield.
deplore Jim Crow, but I do not agree with the characterization that you have done of my views.
What we just watched was one of the most heated Senate confrontations in recent memory. A nominee accused of promoting racial division and replacement theory, a senator erupting in outrage, and a hearing that quickly turned into a battle over race, identity, immigration, and the future of America itself. Now, let's cut through the emotion and get to the substance. The nominee was repeatedly pressed over past comments involving race, demographics, immigration, and what's often called the Great Replacement Theory. The senator's argument was simple. If you believe America becomes weaker as its racial makeup changes, then you are fundamentally rejecting the American principle that all citizens are equal, regardless of race or ethnicity. That's a serious accusation. And honestly, the nominee did himself no favors with some of those answers. When you are asked directly whether America's racial makeup matters, and you struggle to give a clean, straightforward answer, people are going to assume the worst, especially in a position involving diplomacy and international representation. Now here's where conservatives need to be smart and disciplined. There is a legitimate debate about immigration policy, assimilation, national identity, and cultural cohesion. Patriots have every right to ask whether mass illegal immigration affects social stability, economic pressure, national security, or shared values. That is not racism. That is a policy discussion. But once the conversation starts, sounding like certain races or ethnic groups weaken the country simply by existing in larger numbers, you lose the argument immediately. Because America was never founded as an ethnic state. It was founded on constitutional principles, citizenship, liberty, and equal rights under the law. That distinction matters. And this is where the left often wins politically. They take concerns about border security or illegal immigration and connect them to the ugliest voices online. Then suddenly every conservative argument gets painted as racial resentment instead of national security or rule of law. Now, was the senator emotional? Absolutely. Was the confrontation dramatic? Definitely. But some of the nominees' past statements were deeply inflammatory, especially the comparisons involving Jim Crow and January 6th, comparing Capitol rioters to victims of segregation era. Terror was always going to trigger outrage. Those are historical wounds Americans take seriously. At the same time, I think we also need to be honest about what happens in modern politics. Hearings like this are no longer just fact-finding missions. They're televised political combat. Both sides know clips will go viral. Both sides are speaking not only to the room, but to millions online. And that's exactly what happened here. Now, let me give you the conservative patriot perspective. America absolutely needs secure borders. America absolutely needs lawful immigration. America absolutely needs national unity. But national unity cannot be built around racial identity politics from either side. The left divides Americans by race constantly through grievance politics, identity quotas, and selective outrage. Conservatives should not fall into a mirror image version of that trap. The strength of America has always been that people from different backgrounds could become Americans through shared values, loyalty to the Constitution, and belief in the country itself. That doesn't mean borders don't matter. That doesn't mean culture doesn't matter. That doesn't mean assimilation doesn't matter. They absolutely do. But once politics becomes about racial arithmetic, instead of citizenship and principles, the country loses its foundation. And honestly, that was the real tension in this hearing. One side arguing that demographic concerns are racist at their core. The other side trying to frame cultural and political concerns without fully separating them from race. And the result was absolute chaos.